This is insight number 4. Now a little step further from the last insight, which is a person who does not recognize that the sober view is actually the correct view. That's insight number 3. Insight number 4 is about a person who recognizes that the sober reality is actually the real reality. It's the clear way of thinking, seeing, observing. So this is about that. So those who recognize reality, that is the sober view, but are not yet established in reality, are not greatly aware of the real wholesome pleasures available to them. Therefore, they might voluntarily choose to go back to the excitement and pleasures of illusion, which is the lustful view. So there comes a point in someone's life that they recognize that, hey, this lustful view is an illusionary view, and that the sober view is actually the real reality. However, since they have not immersed their mind in this reality, let me read it from the book. There are those who partially recognize the reality of the sober mind and the illusion of sex. If they have not immersed themselves, which is their mind, in the experience and pleasure of the sober state. So if they have not immersed themselves in this sober state, so it's just a partial recognition. They recognize it, but they have not immersed themselves into it. I'll just discuss this with you a little bit further. If they have not immersed, that is to dunk. You have a water, a jug of water, and you put your mind into it, immersed. If they have not, it's like submerged, so thoroughly submerged, fully experienced, the same idea. If they have not immersed themselves in the experience and pleasure of the sober state, and have not let its pleasures satiate their being continuously. Satiate means for them to be fully satisfied, If they have not done this in a continuous state, they are likely to go into an illusory state just to be able to experience pleasure. It's like any activity. If you get involved in any activity and you don't see the pleasure for it, you just give it up generally. Generally, people give it up. They say, I don't see the pleasure, where the pleasure lies. This could be an activity such as watching baseball. I remember watching baseball when I had a house, and I would be watching baseball. And then I said, let me try watching this baseball thing. Because I have not watched it. And I sat there for 2-3 minutes. I'm like, I'm going to go. This is, what's happening here? So every game, every activity has a pleasure aspect to it. But if you're not familiar with where the pleasure actually lies in there, where the pleasure comes from, where to focus, where is the pleasure, then you miss out and you don't know what's going on. So, and you give it up. This is true of truth or sober thinking or reality as well. If you're not aware of reality, where to find pleasure in reality, where to be sober and full of pleasure and experience, a wonderful state of being. And if you don't understand it, then you leave and you go into illusions. Many people do, or stay here and be miserable. So that's why a lot of people go into drugs and alcohol and as an escape from something which it is painful or whatever, or just simply not pleasurable. So that is true also of a person who recognizes, because it's just a starting thing for him. He's just learning about it. So he's learned that, hey, this sober way of thinking is pretty good, but I don't see where the pleasure lies. And so because he doesn't experience pleasure, he goes into, voluntarily he does this. He goes back to the lustful view because he's familiar with pleasure and he wants to experience pleasure, instead of wonderful being, or being the pleasure taking over and feeling good, that kind of thing. Just to be able to experience pleasure.